Hey everyone, this is Tony Nobley Jr. coming with you with Three Nails Studios. We're wrapping up our series on the book of James, on how to be a spiritually mature and complete Christian. Now, if this is your first time clicking it, go ahead. I encourage you to check out the first 9 episodes, get some context to really understand it. But just in case, let's do a quick review one last time. James is asking us to put on a mentality of maturity, a mentality of selflessness. To be a spiritually mature Christian, a complete Christian, we need to have that idea of servanthood, this idea of selflessness, this mentality. And part of that mentality is looking at people the way God looks at people, putting our faith into action through our lives. And James gives us several different examples of that. Now, in our previous episode, we talked about how the rich oftentimes don't trust what God has, and they build that life, that easy, comfortable life, on other people's suffering. And it comes from a lack of trust. Now, when we say the rich, we're not talking about just wealthy people, uber wealthy. We're talking about us as spiritual Christians, that we sometimes have allowed other people to suffer so that our lives can be easier. And a spiritually mature Christian can't do that. To see how we finishes out this entire chapter, let's go ahead and dive in, see what James has to say. Is anyone among you in trouble? Let them pray. Is anyone happy? Let them sing songs of praise. Is anyone among you sick? Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered up in faith will make the sick person well. The Lord will raise them up. If they have sinned, they will be forgiven. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Elijah was a human being, even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced crops. My brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth, someone should bring that person back. Remember this, whoever turns a sinner from the error of their ways will save them from death and cover them over a multitude of sins. Lots to unpack there for sure, but I think there's some principles that kind of help us, some key concepts that give us a whole picture of what James is trying to say. The first is this idea of, is there anyone in trouble? Is there anyone suffering? It's a compound word that means badly and feelings and puts it together. Is anyone feeling bad among you? I have to ask. That's a pretty broad, general question. I think all of us at some point have felt bad. When we think about suffering, a lot of times we tend to put it on other countries. We tend to put it on other people. We don't think about our own lives. But when we ask that question, is anyone feeling bad? Are you feeling bad? Then pray. Connect with God. Restart the system. James has given us some very tough questions for us to ask ourselves, some very difficult assignments, a lot of soul searching. And he says, listen, if any of this is making you feel bad, understand that you can connect with God. That's the starting point. He talks about this word of confess. Now, the word confession has a lot of connotations attached to it nowadays. So I want you to remove this idea about speaking in a quiet, dark corner about these shameful things, these dirty things. And I want you instead to think of this idea of just sharing with your friends. See, another use for this word can be agree and praise. Confession, agreement, and praise. These are things that we tend to do in a group. So instead of thinking about something in that dark corner, I want you to think about just opening up to your friends, to people that you trust, and being able to admit where you're struggling in your life. See, if we think about it in that way, now all of a sudden we're willing to admit, hey, as a spiritually mature person, I want to grow. And in order to grow, I need to be willing to admit my faults. I've been looking in that mirror, like God's saying, listening to what he's saying, not putting it aside, not waiting for tomorrow. And now I have to admit that there are some things that are holding me back. Can you help me? Talk about this word powerful and effective. See, when they talk about the prayers of a righteous person, we're talking about someone who's honest in front of God. Remember, the idea of righteousness is someone who passes the test, somebody who is on that path to spiritual maturity. Their prayers are going to be honest. And those prayers are going to be able to speak truth into your life. In order to be a complete person, surround yourself with people who are willing to speak truth into your life, who are willing to speak over you those truths. And finally, just this idea of wandering. If anyone wanders, now that connotation kind of gives us this idea. It infers that maybe they're just kind of drifting off, a passive kind of action. But the truth is, this is anything but. In fact, that word actually means led astray. This idea is that there are forces and people that are oftentimes leading us astray. Remember those leaders that we talked about in previous episodes that are listening, putting voices in our ears, and a spiritually mature person is able to see those who are being led astray and are able to speak into their lives. And James is encouraging us to be the people that speak that truth. That's part of living out our faith, is not just living for ourselves. It's that selfless mentality. Yes, it's great that someone's speaking truth into your life, but if all that is you receiving, if you're never giving it out, then you're missing out on that lesson. So much we could say about this, but the idea of praying as one of the actions that reveals our faith is so important. And I want to leave you with this, that James is asking you to live out your faith. And one of the best ways you can do that is by connecting with God. Prayer is the most powerful way of connecting. Continue to do that. Draw near to him, as he says before. Put habits in your life where you can listen to what God's saying, where you can look in the mirror and ask yourself deep questions and then respond to it. And finally, just this idea, God is looking to help you grow. He wants you to be that spiritually mature person. He wants you to be that complete person. He's currently speaking into your life right now. What are the things he's saying to you? Are you willing to listen to them? They might not be pretty, but they will help you become better. And I think every one of us wants them. I think no matter where we are in our journey, if we're struggling, if we're doing well, we all want to be growing. We all want to become better. So take the time to listen and put into action what God is trying to tell you, what God's trying to tell me. And together, hopefully we can become more mature and more perfect. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. We're so excited. We have so many other new projects that we're thinking about and planning. Hopefully this meant something to you. If so, please take a moment, subscribe to our channel, like this video, put in comments, go back and see some of our other content that David has been able to put out and produce. And thank you for being part of this journey with us here at 3 Nails Studio.